Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening everyone, and today we are continuing with our lecture series on Dhammavinicchaya, and so far we have discussed 13 questions raised by the most venerable Redukane Chandavira Mahathera and answered by himself. In the previous previous month, we couldn't do the lecture on the first week as we had the full moon day on that day. So in the previous lecture we talked what should be done with food and drinks offering dedicated to the Buddha at monasteries and similar places. And according to the Mahathera, it's not a sin to consume them because eventually at last they have to be discarded, and so there is no issue in offering them to a poor person or animals, or even consuming by the one who does the duties or the one by anyone. But it's better that one does not follow this practice because since it would cause like he would eventually have the thought of eating it, of eating it even while the offering is being made. So today's question is number 14. I think I have shared the handout. If a devout person who has prepared a Buddha puja and is on the way to a monastery encounters a poor person who had fainted from hunger because he has not received food, which of the following is better? Giving the food being carried to the poor person and restoring him, or disregarding him and taking that food to the monastery to make the offering as a Buddha puja. So it's a sort of question, like a tricky question or a challenging question to answer, because while you are taking the Buddha puja to offer to the monastery as a Buddha puja, because Buddha is not alive in the end, and you encounter a very poor person who is starving and who is in need of food, and what would be your choice? Would you offer it to the poor person and restore him, or would you still continue to the monastery and offer it to the Buddha who is no more there and who would surely not consume it? And one can have an argument, yes, I will offer the Buddha puja and sometimes take it back and give back to the beggar. That won't be a nice answer, I would say, because the purpose is like to completely dedicate it to the Buddha or to offer it to the poor person. Before going into the answer of the Mahathera, my opinion is it depends on the person's wish. So if he wishes to change his mind and offer it to the poor person, that would be his own choice. Or if he decides to continue and offer the food to the Buddha who had already passed away, that still would be his own choice. And there is no sin or akusala in doing so or making the choice. There would be no akusala at all, because it's our own choice. It's our free will to decide whether to give something to a particular person or to give to someone else. For example, while there are two people who are in need of our help, we can completely decide on. We have the utmost autonomy in deciding on whom to give this offering. So that's the first thing that we should know. And there's no sin in choosing someone over another. So that's something that we need to understand. Not in the utilitarian view, because in the utilitarian view, one would say the greatest good. We have to always consider about the greatest good, and disregarding is not nice. So always we have to restore ourselves in the conduct where the greatest good for the greatest number is achieved or is given. But in Buddhism, our own choice, we have the autonomy, or the I would say the dictatorship in deciding what to do and what not to do. And as long as there is no harm is done towards someone or inflicted upon someone, any harm, as long as there's no harm inflicted upon someone, as long as we can maintain our mind and purely, there's no sin that is caused. For example, even while, for example, think now the person continues to the monastery and offer the food to the Buddha who is no more, who has already passed away thousands of years ago, and that person happens to die, who was starving happens to die, and according to the teachings there is no sin caused by his disregard or non-attending. Now the same thing is applicable if someone, for example, someone is drowning in the water, and if we just disregard it and continue with our own work without helping the person, while the person we are capable of helping, still there is no akusala in it. There is no akusala in it. But ethically speaking, yes, we would all disagree with what he has done, and we would also would not like to associate such a person, because we ourselves would feel even while I'm in danger, the person would act in the same way. So as a human being, we expect people to support another human who is in need, but also we have limitations in it, because we all know that we can contribute to some extent to the people who are suffering in war driven areas, or in war affected areas, or in continents there where hunger is prevailing. We still can do something, but most of us are not really into that. Most of us are not really into that, even though it's not going to cost hugely to our wealth. We are not really into it, because we just consider, okay, it's something far away, and we are not really, it's not our business, because we have our own things to take care of. So therefore, but disregarding it is not an akusala. It's not an akusala. I have to clearly say this. Then the question here is, what is raised here is, what is better? What would give a greater merit? What would give a greater merit? So in this regard, the decider of the amount of merit accumulated by a certain karma is basically mainly it is in proportionate with the qualities of the receiver of our action, the end of our action. For example, if I am giving something to someone, the end of my action is that particular person who is receiving my gift. Or if I am killing someone, the end of my action is the other person who is being killed. So one who receives my action, one who is affected by my action, is his qualities is what mainly decides the level of the merits or demerits accumulated through that particular act. It's nothing else. So nothing to do with the social status and so forth. There can be slight effects to the karma based on the situation, because it's a very complex thing. But mainly, basically, what affects the nature of the karma is the qualities, the actual spiritual qualities that one possesses. Actually, the one who is receiving the end, who is receiving this our action. So in that regard, when we are offering something to the Buddha, now imagine, just take it away the fact that the Buddha has passed away. Now we shall take this question now, this situation onto an occasion where the Buddha was actually alive, for instance. Now imagine this scenario: the Buddha is alive in Jetavana, and we are taking some food to offer to him, and there is a poor person who is begging or who is starving, and we technically know that Buddha would not starve, because there are a lot of devotees who are going to help him. Anathapindika was there, at any emergency Visakha was there, and based on the merits that he had accumulated, it was very unlikely that he would go starving. So now think that we have all the knowledge about this environment and the situation, and I'm taking my food to the Buddha, and I see a very poor person starving. What would be the choice? That's an interesting question to ask. Now, what would be the choice? Still, it's the person's preference. If he continues to go and offer to the Buddha, That's his preference, and if he changes his mind, no, I'm not going to offer to the Buddha, I'm going to offer to this person because he's starving. Buddha would eventually get the food, and even though I don't offer him, he will get the food. Then the person would decide to offer to the beggar. But the thing is, it's at his choice, that there's no harm in it, no akusala in it, but the merits accumulated would be drastically different, because offering the Buddha, who has completely eradicated all defilements together with the tendencies towards the akusalas, which we call vasana, who is the utmost pure being you can ever have in samsara, and offering something to him would surely give you the greatest merit as a individual donation. And offering to the poor person, yes, maybe he doesn't have much sila, he is not into spirituality, he's still suffering, yes, you can offer him, and still you would get benefits based on his own qualities, his actual qualities. So that's how the karma is decided. Karma is not decided based on the social status or anything. It's basically decided based on the level of qualities that the person has. So then but still we can, this would be a very complicated situation in this regard. Now, for example, if there are two poor people, two beggars, okay, two beggars, 1 and 2, right, two beggars are there, number 1 and number 2. And this person, if you think that both have the similar qualities, both are not virtuous or in a same level of mindset, and one is really starving and one is not starving, it's full, for example, it's full, he had his meal. Now among this, it seems like, yeah, if both possess equal qualities, offering to the person who is starving would give you greater merit than offering to, now for example, if we call A and B, it seems like A is greater than B. Why is that? Because he was actually in need of food at the moment. Now he's not in need of food at the moment because he's full. He would need food for the next day, but at the moment he is not desperate for food, because this person's life would now his health life would be really supported by the donation we are making. In this regard, it seems, and I'm pretty much sure that this A of offering the person who is starving is greater than offering a beggar who is full, who has a filled stomach, who had his meal. So therefore, the person's situation also matters in this regard. Now, imagine Buddha already had his meal, he's having his meal, and we are going to make it a side dish, for instance. Now, even we are not going to offer it, still he would have his meal, and then the beggar is starving and he's struggling without food. Now, in this situation, the need is for the beggar, not for the Buddha, even while the Buddha was alive. But then what happens is, now if both had similar qualities, yes, the one who would need, offering him would be a greater merit. But now still the Buddha's qualities would way more greater than the qualities of the beggar, and also the need that he is in. So even though he is starving and he is really struggling with the food, and still we are offering the meal to the Buddha who has already had his meal, or who is having his meal, and who would not be affected by the absence of our meal. So still offering the Buddha is much greater, because he would his qualities would outweigh the qualities of the beggar, and also it would go beyond the situation or the scenario where the beggar was in, even though he's really desperate for the food. It's my personal opinion. So I feel like, so therefore offering the Buddha would be greater in that sense. Now then another question can be asked, yes, now offering something to the Buddha as a gift or a amisadana, and if the beggar is really starving and he is at the brink of death, and our food is going to save his life, that's another complicated situation, because the offering that I make him to the Buddha would be a Amisa puja. So I'm offering it to as a gift for him. But that if I deviate my donation to the beggar instead and offer him, and that would be an act of saving his life, that would go into the category of Abhedana. That would go into the category of Abhedana. Then we have to weigh two different danas, Abhedana and Amisadana. Seems like Abhedana would in the general sense, Abhedana seems to be greater than Amisadana, because we are giving offering, like saving his life in one sense. When it results, it would give more protection to our lives in samsara, and we would have long lives rather than having a lot of property. But with the Amisadana, we would eventually get more property in samsara. So in that regard, which merit is much greater? I'm not going to going into detail and decide what would be greater. But if now beggar is starving, is not in the brink of death, at the brink of death, I may offer it as Amisadana, even though he's desperate, and I may offer that the same food to the Buddha as Amisadana. Obviously, offering to the Buddha would overweigh and would surely surpass the merits accumulated in than the offering to the beggar. There's no argument in that. That's very clear cut. But the thing is, if we are deviating the same Amisadana for Abhedana and saving someone's life, rather offering a gift to the Buddha, that would be in two different categories, I would say. One is Amisadana, while the other is the Abhedana, and they would give two different outcomes, different results. And now, for example, if the Buddha was sick and a poor person was sick, treating both of them and curing their sickness, yes, if it was done to cure the sickness of curing the Buddha's sickness, would be much greater, because he is a higher person than the other one. So, but the thing is, if the food was offered to the beggar as a Jivita Dana or Abhedana, and if the food was offered to the Buddha as Amisa Dana, some people would say still the Buddha's offering would would go beyond the saving of the life of the beggar. In my opinion, it's rather than comparing these two, I would say this Abhedana would result in a different way than Amisadana will be. So because now Amisadana is mostly would give us more prosperity, more property, and more luxuries in the life. But in the Abhedana sense, yes, it still has that capacity. It also has that capacity, but mostly it would act as a shield in our future lives, and our lives would be more protected from death. So it's quite difficult for me to judge these two. Now, so therefore we can make it more and more complicated. But if you take it as two different Amisadanas, obviously offering to the Buddha would be much greater. Now we are coming into a realistic scenario where the Buddha has already passed away thousands of years ago, and we are dedicating a meal to a dead or passed away Buddha, and while there's a living being alive, we can have the opportunity to offer it to the poor person. Now this would also change the scenario a bit, because the Buddha is not alive and he is not really going to benefit out of the food, and the poor person is really benefiting out of the food, and he is going to get more merit. So now if you take this into the scenario of the Buddha, while the Buddha was alive and while the Buddha has passed away, we talked about this previous few months ago actually. If the Buddha is alive, the merit is higher than when the offering is done when the Buddha is no more. Because we proved it actually. It is very obvious in the doctrine that because a Mahabodhisattva cannot get his first proclamation, or he cannot be destined, he cannot enter into the destined Bodhisattva path, making an offering to a past Buddha or the relics of the Buddha. It has to be the Buddha. But the Buddha has to be alive at that moment, because in order for that merit to come into the culmination of becoming the Abhinihara, even if the Buddha has sent one of his images made by his psychic power, and if the Bodhisattva doesn't have any idea that he is making the offering to the image that he has sent, even though his mind is fully believing that it is a living Buddha, still that merit would not come into the level of Abhinihara. What does he suggest is that his khandhas has to be presently alive there while he is making the merit. So therefore offering, and also we know when we offer food to a Arahant who had emerged from the Nirodha Samapatti, and that merit would result within this very life for sure, according to the teachings. But if you think about a situation where the Sariputta, if you think while he is no more, you think about a scenario where the Sariputta has emerged from the Nirodha Samapatti and you make an offering to one of his statues, we are not going to get the same merit. So the person's liveliness or the person being alive matters a lot in deciding the level of the karma. Even though it is said that the merit would be equal when whether Buddha is alive or whether the Buddha has passed away. We analyze this stanza very thoroughly in one of our lectures. And it's just said in a general sense. Yes, offering the Buddha would still be complete even while he is not there, and he would still get the great merits. But obviously when you analyze it sharply, offering to a living Buddha is much greater than offering to a Buddha who has passed away. Now in this scenario, so it shows that the person who is alive and who has passed away, would make a huge, in my opinion, it would make a huge difference, but we can say it makes a difference. There is a difference in the level of merits. Now the scenario, if the Buddha has passed away, if the beggar has passed away, for example, there is a beggar person, anyone whom we know, and we are dedicating some food for him, and that's also some kind of a donation done. According to Theravada, such donations can be done, and because whether the person is alive or not doesn't matter in this sense. So obviously offering to a dead Buddha or Parinibbana, Buddha who has attained Parinibbana, and also to a dead beggar, obviously offering to the Buddha would be greater. Now the question is, the Buddha is no more, Buddha has attained Parinibbana, he is not living, and we are dedicating some food to that person, food to the Buddha, while the beggar is still alive. So it's also there is a conflict between the alive person and the dead person, right, who is no more, because Buddha died actually. We normally don't say his final death as a death, we call it Parinibbana. That's because he was not born again. But actually what happened to him was he died. It's called Chuti. Kalakiriya. So he passed away, he decayed and eventually he died, but what happened was he was not born again. So that death, we normally say it's the Parinibbana, the attainment of Parinibbana, because after the death there is no more, there's no arising of new khandhas. That's why it's called Parinibbana. But eventually from the perspective of this life, that's the end of his life, and that's called his death. So we would say the Buddha died. Now, therefore, now in this case, the beggar is alive, the Buddha has died, and we are dedicating the food to the dead Buddha, and also we have the opportunity to offer the food to the living beggar. So there is a difference in the dead and the alive, but still, according to the scriptures and according to what we know in this scenario, in this context, as we believe, the offering to the Buddha is much greater than offering to someone who is alive, someone else who is alive, especially a Putujana. So the Buddha's donation would be greater than offering to him. That's how the answer is given, because his qualities, even though he is no more, the qualities he possessed while he was alive is far more greater than the qualities the beggar is manifesting at the moment, right? So therefore, in terms of merit, yes, still offering to a Buddha who has attained Parinibbana is greater than offering to a beggar who is starving, regardless of the situation under the circumstance he was. But if it was an act of saving his life, and if it was an act of offering to the Buddha, in my opinion, we have to treat it differently, because that one is a abedana and one is a amisadana. Still, one would say offering to the Buddha is greater. In my opinion, I would say they had to be treated differently, because they are falling into two different categories. They are falling now, because we are not going to ask a question like, okay, I offered food to the Buddha and I preached Dhammadana. What would be much greater? The scripture says teaching Dhamma is greater than making a amisadana. Yes, it can give much merits, but in my opinion, I would say like the benefits that you get by preaching Dhamma is quite different from making a amisadana, because you cannot get, now in some places we say if you do meditation you can get all the benefits of dana, sila and bhavana, but that's not the case in the entirety, because otherwise the bodhisattva is no use for the bodhisattva to make donations of eyes, ears, flesh, and which is a tormenting process. So he would have just kept on meditating in samsara and he would be able to get all these accumulation of paramis by that. No, right? So therefore these kammas, bhavana, sila, dana, yes, you can show a hierarchy what is more greater and more beneficial and what is more closer to the liberation. Yes, in that sense bhavana is much greater, but the results they give are quite different. They are quite different. Even though a person who has done, now imagine a bodhisattva practices only meditation for the 4 asankhayas and 100,000 years. Can he be a Buddha? No, it's not possible, because he had to go through that process of dana. The most difficult parami to fulfill is dana parami. In my opinion, most difficult is dana parami, because you have to offer your life, you have to dedicate your entire life, some body parts. So this is not a simple joke, like simple task that one can make. It's not like just meditating and attaining a jhana and doing something. Yes, it's difficult in the sense of controlling the mind, but if you are given a chance, okay, you go and meditate and try to attain a jhana and achieve it, or would you sacrifice one of your eyes? Obviously, we would choose the first option, because dedicating or offering one's eyes is much difficult task to endure, and because we have to live the entire life without that eye afterwards. So that's the obvious question that we have. If you are getting an eye or something, if you have a different vision, we would also be able to donate our eyes and fulfill the donation or paramis or whatever we need. But in that case, so we know that dana parami is the most difficult task to do. So therefore, even though some would say bhavana is much greater and you can get all the benefits by doing that, that's not the case in entirety. Always you have to consider they would result differently. Now think about the Buddha's great science, 32 great science. He has mentioned specific karmas which caused these great signs. In the Lakkana Sutta, he directly said this. It's not that you cannot achieve them by doing meditation throughout the whole samsara. No, that's not how it works. So therefore, we are not capable of deciding or weighing two different kammas. One can say bhavana is much greater because it would give a result in the Brahma realm. It is closer to the liberation. It would purify your mind, and that's the final task. Dana is done for the sila and for the sake of bhavana. Yes, in various ways you can highlight the bhavana and keep it in a higher pedestal or a place and still praise it, but you are not going to get the entire benefits of dana just by doing bhavana, because dana has two different qualities that would deepen our attributes or qualities that are necessary to be a noble being. Especially this is seen in the bodhisattva's practice. So therefore, now preaching Dhamma and making a amisadana, in my opinion, is two different. Because now, personally, if I say something personal, because I have been preaching Dhamma for some years now, and since my initial stages of monk life, I was preaching Dhamma very oftenly. There was a period that I didn't preach any Dhamma while I was studying in Myanmar. and I was like more involved in studying rather than teaching. But I have been doing this for a long period, and it has become something natural in myself. But I know now I can give I can make donation, I can spread Dhamma, I can teach the Dhamma, but when I'm making a donation, when I'm making a dana out of the requisites I have, or if I'm offering some valuable object or a requisite that I obtained righteously, so I always weigh whether I would need it or not, because that's normally, as a monk we normally do that, because we have to depend on the things that are given by the devotees. If the requisite is really necessary for us, we don't normally give it. For example, we are not offering our robes even though we want to offer robes, because if that's the only thing that I have to keep it. So patta, those are the things. Patra, normally we don't offer it unless we get an extra one. We can do it, but normally we are not going to offer the patra and start eating in a plate. No, that's not how it works in monk life. So therefore, always we consider whether this requisite is necessary or not, and even if it is necessary, but if I can sustain from a minor requisite, yes, still the offering can be made. So I know how the mind processes. I think all of you as devotees know that, how the mind processes. But the thing is, most devotees don't have the experience of preaching Dhamma. They would consider, okay, preaching Dhamma is much greater than making the Amisadana, because from my perspective, I find that preaching Dhamma is something natural, and I don't feel any issue in it. Yes, someone asks questions, I just preach it unless I'm very tired. So I'm very ready to spread the Dhamma that I have studied. But I'm not losing anything from my property by just spreading the Dhamma, because I know just by spreading the Dhamma others would benefit. At the same time, it would increase my knowledge as well, proficiency in the Dhamma as well, and I'm also greatly benefiting out of teaching. But when I'm offering a donation, making an amisa dana, I'm not going to get any benefit out of that requisite in this life after it's given. Yeah, the merit that I'm accumulating, that is something different. I will get benefits for that, and there's a belief that I have that I'm not getting any benefits on the spot. But by preaching Dhamma, yes, I'm benefiting on the spot, and I'm not losing anything. I'm just sharing, because even though I have spread this Dhamma, I'm not losing the knowledge that I have. But when I'm making an amisadana, I'm losing something. So I know that the mindset is completely different in this regard. So preaching Dhamma has, according to the teachings, has more greater benefits, means like it is more powerful as a donation. But amisadana is, because if you think about the benefits given to the donor, by preaching Dhamma, he is getting more closer. The listener would get closer and closer to Nibbana, and he would also start doing good merits, and that would eventually help him to go in the process faster, rather than the support given by a amisa or a gift. But from the donor's perspective, that mindset is completely different. So like, for instance, I find it, for example, to be honest, I find it much easier to do Dhammadana, because when you have the skill, because many people lack the skill, okay, they find it like it's very difficult to give Dhamma, because mostly they don't know the Dhamma and they are not very confident about the Dhamma. Because in order to give Dhammadana, you have to know Dhamma, and you have to be very confident about what you know, and you have to be very honest to preach what you know and to admit what you don't know. So all these qualities are necessary, but if you have these qualities and if you are confident about the things that you have done, if you know and if you have done the studies, yes, you can preach it. But offering requisites is completely, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. It doesn't mean that I find it much easier to preach Dhamma than to make offerings, to then make offerings like Amisadana. Because the way the mind works is quite different at that moment. But that's my personal experience. In the overall sense, people would say no, Dhammadana is more difficult, because it's difficult to acquire the Dhamma and to have that proficiency in preaching. Yes, in terms of Becoming a preacher, the process is difficult. Yes, the process is difficult. I know that. You have to be very careful about what you preach, and you have to think wisely, and most importantly, you have to have studied and gain the knowledge. It's different from acquiring than getting more wealth, because learning Dhamma and studying the scriptures thoroughly, you need time for that, you need space for that, you need peace of mind for that, and also as a preacher you have to have some kind of conduct within yourself as a monk. So it's in terms of spiritual arena, it is achieved by some sort of dedication. A lot of dedication has to be there to come into that status. Yes, in that regard, giving Dhammadana is difficult because many people cannot come to that status. After you have achieved that status, for example, I consider myself have achieved that status of a Dhamma preacher. I am capable of preaching Dhamma. I am more confident in preaching Dhamma, and therefore has some proficiency. So in this regard, now preaching Dhamma is not an issue for me. But when I'm supposed to give donations, okay, I have to consider whether this is useful, whether I would need it for my future, what is my futuristic plans, all has to be considered. And how much allowable requisites I'm going to spend for this, am I going to spend all the requisites? Even I was asked to teach all for example, if hypothetically speaking, if this is my Dhamma knowledge, and if someone asks, okay, preach everything that you have, and if I'm able to do it within 10 hours, for example, I would be really happy to do that, because I'm not going to lose anything by it, because I'll get more merits, and my Dhamma knowledge will also increase by that. But if I'm asked to give all the requisites that I have for myself, with my kapiyas, or with all the property that I possess as a monk, for example, books or whatever material stuff that I have, am I ready to give that? Obviously not. Obviously not. So it shows that what I want to say is that these two different donations, Dhammadana and Amisadana, are quite different in their nature. So the same way, now I think all of you, now you can understand the difference of these two. Now if someone is a teacher, or if someone is used to teach, that's very close to Dhammadana, because he may not be teaching the noble Dhamma, but still he or she is sharing some knowledge that he has. But now think, sharing your knowledge with your students and making a donation, they are completely two different arenas. You cannot just compare them. And because you are bestowing the knowledge into someone else, it's more beneficial for the student, no doubt about that, than giving $100 per month. Yes, you are giving knowledge into him, so he or she can strive by him or herself. But when you are making two different donations, like sharing the knowledge and sharing the wealth, the way they feel is quite different. In the same way, now bring Abhedana into this context. Abhedana is saving someone's life. It's much closer to the Amisadana than the Dharmadana, yes, obviously. But now saving someone's life and supporting someone with a gift. Imagine, this life is the only thing that someone has. That's the ultimate thing one possesses. I may offer a gift and he may benefit out of it, but if I can save someone's life, that's in a different level, that's in a different stage. So that's why I said, if we are deviating this donation that was going to be given to the live Buddha, and we are deviating to a person who is struggling, and if that was a gesture of saving his life, if that was an act of saving his life, then I feel the two karmas are in two different levels, like Amisada and Dharmadana. There the difference is more obvious and conspicuous, but in this case still Abhedana and Amisadana are in two different levels. Now imagine, I will make it more, the purpose of this explanation, I will to give more insights into this. Not just to talk this and finish the question, that's not my purpose. Now imagine, I'm going to offer this offering to the Buddha. And now imagine yourself, now you know some Dhamma, and you're going to offer this food to the Buddha, and you see a beggar a person who is ready to listen to you, and you know that, and you can give it a try, that if you preach the knowledge, Dhamma, that you know, whatever you know, and he might convert into Buddhism, or he might start believing Buddha's teachings. What would be your choice? Are you still processing to make the offering to the Samma Sambuddha and get that great merit of donation, or are you dedicated, are you stopping and trying to bring this person into the Samma Ditti? That might be the last chance, for example. Now, he may not meet the Buddha. Otherwise, one can start thinking of scenarios like, okay, I make the donation, come and preach, tell the Buddha, okay, forget about all these scenarios. If that is the only chance, then he is also going to die. You're not going to save his life, but if you are able to, now you can give it a try and make him a Sammadittika person, and eventually he will die, but that would completely change the course of his samsara. And at the same time, you have the opportunity to one donation, for example. That's the only chance you are getting to, and Buddha is also about to attain Parinibbana. Imagine this is a very hypothetical scenario. What would be the choice? Are we going to convert that person into a Sammaditthi, or are we processing to give the donation, to the only donation that you are going to get in this sasana for a live Buddha? It's a very hard decision to decide. I would feel for devout Buddhists that would be much difficult than this question. Giving food to a poor beggar who is in need of food. He may not die, but who is in need of food, or processing to offer to the Buddha who has attained Parinibbana. Imagine this scenario. We are going to offer the only dana to the living Buddha because he is about to attain Parinibbana, and imagine you are given the chance to offer the last meal of the Buddha. Okay, normally it would happen in a grand scale, like a special case, but imagine if that was the scenario. You are able to give that food to the Buddha, and you are capable of turning someone, a Micchaditti person, into Sammaditthi. That would completely change his entire course of samsara, and one day he will attain the Parinibbana in the future. What would be the choice? That's a very tough one. One can easily say, no, forget about him, I'm going to get the donation, and I'm going to make a great wish, so my liberation is more vital than someone else's. Yes, he can process. The question is, what would be more fruitful? The Dhamma dana that you are giving to this person, or the Amisa dana that you are giving to the Buddha? So you feel, and I think you should understand that they are completely two different departments. Choice is there. You can make there's no problem in making the choice. That's not the case here. Are we ready to weigh these two karmas? Is it now converting someone from Micchaditti to Sammaditthi and completely changing the course of his life, and also accumulating a merit that would surely guarantee your for many lives, for example? Surely this is going to be a great merit, and you will be born in the heavens, and you will continue in heavens, and there's a high possibility that you would be the next Buddha and get the liberation. So you are so both have that consequence, and so it seems like, in my opinion, we should not be weighing them at the same scale. So I feel it is a Dhammadana, and this is a Amisadana. So they should be treated differently. The same way, if the donation is deviated to the beggar as an act of saving his life, and if it was continued to support the Buddha as a gift or a food donation, in my opinion, they should be treated differently. Now, if both are Amisadanas, yes, then there's no doubt in it that offering the Buddha would benefit greater than offering to a beggar. But then one can ask, who is more compassionate? What should be done? What is the purpose? What should be the purpose of a Buddhist? In my opinion, Buddhists don't have such a clear-cut purpose. In Buddhism, we have lots of options to do. It's not that everyone has to ordain. It's not that everyone has to practice 10 precepts. It's not that everyone has to practice 8 precepts for sure. Normally, we would expect person to practice 5 precepts, but that's not compulsory as a Buddhist. But that would be the basis requirement for higher attainment. So we would say that a Buddhist must practice 5 precepts, but it is not necessary to keep the Buddhist status. Anyway, so in Buddhism we have much larger options that we can do. In any religion that's the case. So we should not be asking this question and saying what should be done at that moment, because it's not only related to Buddhism. There are many such scenarios that we can face in such situations. For example, wife is drowning and the mother is drowning. Whom should we save? Okay. A daughter is drowning and the mother is drowning. Okay, this is a much difficult case to deal with. Mother is drowning, and if you attend to someone, the other one is going to surely die. So what would be what is the course of conduct that one has to follow? Are you just letting your mother die? She is quite old, for example. Okay, are you just letting your mother die, who was the refuge and who brought you into this world? Or are you just going to let your daughter die, whose responsibility is best upon you as a parent? So that is a very tough situation. I wish that no one would experience such a devastating situation. But if someone asks a question, how should a Buddhist act in this scenario? I think there's no clear-cut answer for this. And even in the political scenario, even in the social scenario, I don't think there is a clear-cut answer for this. So in the same way, from the Buddhist perspective, there is no such a clear-cut way to act on this kind of situation. Whether we proceed to give the donation to the Buddha or whether we deviate it and offer to the beggar, it completely depends. It completely depends on the decision the donor is making. So we should not be blaming him, or we should not be praising him for what he has done, because that's his wish, that's his decision, Even, for example, even myself, I'm not advocating or encouraging people to do that. For example, if I get a special offering, like if I feel like, okay, I can offer it to Mahachetya as a donation, and I find one of my monks, one of my students are in need of this requisite. In most of the cases, my choice will be to offer to the student who is in need of that. Rather than offering to and also when I get the opportunity, okay, I have a special requisite which I can offer to a very virtuous, well-respected, learned Mahathera, maybe one of my teachers, but I find a monk who is in really need of that. In such scenarios, I would say, okay, whether the Mahathera really needs it and the student or the young monk needs it. So I would normally, my personal way of doing is I would weigh who would benefit out of it, who would mostly benefit out of it. And I know most of the cases I would go for the monk who is mostly in need of that. In such scenarios, in my personal, I don't weigh what kind of merit am I going to get out of it. That's my personal way of thinking in most of the cases. But for example, if I have prepared the donation for the Mahachetya and completely dedicated, like from my mind, I'm ready for that, on the way, I may not offer it to someone else. I would surely go and dedicate it for the Mahachetya. But if the scenario is different, if the person is really in need of that and I feel compassionate and I'm allowed to do it with Vinaya, then my mind might change. It might change. So it's very dangerous to say that this is how you should act. I'm a person, I would never do that, for example. And not say, even I myself cannot decide on it, because it would depend on the situations, the mindset that I have, the compassion that would arise in me. So there are many situations that would dictate that situation, that occasion. So in most of the cases, what I do mostly is I would find out what is the most benefit and what is the benefit, and who would get the benefit out of this donation. What is real? Who really needs it? I would rather, thinking of the merits that I'm accumulating, I would mostly, in most of the cases, I would think of making. And if I'm capable of doing both the donation, then I would go for that. And also for the Mahathera and also for the other person. But in a scenario where that I don't have any other requisites and this is the only requisite that I have, I want to make a choice. In most of the cases, I would go for the one who is in need. So, and it also depends on the situation and all this stuff. So therefore, it's up to us to decide whether to go for the higher merit or whether to go for the benefit of the receiver. That's something that we have to decide. So it's, in my opinion, asking such a question is quite unfair, especially because someone is a Buddhist and asking whether are you going to proceed to offer to the Buddha who has passed away, or are you going to offer it to the poor person, right? So we'll read it. Now, if this question is resolved according to rules of governance, now this is how Mahathera has said this, it must be said that giving the food to the poor person who is suffering from hunger is good. A pious person who makes an offering to the Buddha does so with the expectation of accumulating merit for future happiness. However, the greatness of merit depends on the recipient's virtues, not based on his or her destitution. So, in the same way, but if the both have same qualities, the situation one is in really matters. But here, because what Mahathera has said, the merits, the qualities of the person, Buddha would surely overweigh the situation the person is in, the beggar is in. However, there is no one in the world more virtuous than the Buddha. The Tathagata is supreme among the virtuous, among all those worthy of reverence and offerings. The Tathagata alone is foremost. Naimasming loke parasming va pana buddhena setto sadisova vijjati yamaha muneyang aggatang gato punyatikanang vipula palesinang. Neither in this world nor in another does there exist one superior or even equal to the Buddha. He has attained the highest rank among those worthy of offerings for those who desire merit and seek abundant results. Compared with the merit gained by giving to a poor person, the merit obtained by making a Buddha offering yields results hundreds of thousands of times greater. Judged in terms of the future results that accrue to the devout person who carries a Buddha puja, it should be said that making the offering to the Buddha is what brings more benefits. To say that one should abandon the idea of making a Buddha puja and give the food to the poor person is to cause loss to the party of the donor while helping another, the poor person. Very often questions of this kind are raised by individuals who neither perform Buddha offering nor assist the poor and who live apart from the Dhamma. And that's why I also personally feel these kind of questions are really unfair, because it really touches our decision making, the privacy or the will that we have in making decisions. So we should not be dictating and making a statement that this is how you should act in such situations. No, it should not be done like that, especially when we are supposed to make a choice. So what Mahathera is saying, these kind of questions, those days in 1950s, I think these questions were raised, and he says mostly the ones who really, and this is also like sort of a attack that he is giving. I would not fully agree with what Mahathera is saying there, because you can technically ask this question. You can, as a philosophical theory, you can ask this question. But I would feel it's really unfair in that sense, because the answer, rather than giving a clear-cut answer for that, I would rather give the broader perspective and say, no, it depends on the choice. There's no something correct or wrong in such a situation. But Mahathera is attacking the ones who are asking this question. Very often questions of this kind are raised by individuals who neither perform Buddha puja nor assist the poor and who live apart from the Dhamma. Devout people who make Buddha offerings, on the other hand, very often also help the poor. Yeah, that's what's happening, because mostly the ones who are, there can be situations where people make offerings to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha but disregard the poor. That there can be such scenarios, but most of the cases, because when you have developed the generosity, you yield it even towards the ones who are poor and also other humans and also the animals. With regard to poor people who are without food, the question that ought to be raised is not this issue of Buddha puja offerings, but rather the question, which is better, giving something of one's own to support a helpless person or safeguarding one's own possessions. That's a very nice one, because with regard to the poor people, the question should be asked whether I'm going to make a donation to these poor people, or rather save it for ourselves, What would be better? What would be better? Keeping it for ourselves or donating it to the poor people? Yes, that's the question that should be asked in this regard. Okay, now I think we have done that question. Hope things are clear. The next question: when performing acts of homage and offering to the Buddha, is it necessary to recite verses? Is it wrong to perform homage and offering to the Buddha without reciting verses? I don't think this question needs much elaboration here, because in most of the cases, like, it's not necessary actually. We have three types of acts of showing respect or paying homage. We can do it with body without just uttering anything. That's the gesture of like bowing down to the Buddha, and also bringing the palms together and showing this homage, right, act of respect. And then we can utter Buddha's qualities with words. That's why I say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Even we can do it without using our hands, because normally when we are giving a Dhamma talk, we are holding a fan. We are just making the Namakkara or the respect to the Buddha with words. That's called Vachi Namakkara, and with mind as well, without just while sitting on the bed, sleeping on the bed, sitting on a chair. You can just with your mind pay homage to the Buddha. So all this is possible. So it's not necessary that we are supposed to recite verses. Okay. Now I'll just read it, and the idea is very clear. Now, nowhere in Tipitaka, nor in the commentaries or sub-commentaries, is it stated that verses are required to performing homage and offerings. The ancients performed acts of homage and offering without reciting verses. The proper manner of venerating a stupa or a bodhi tree is explained in the commentary of the Samanya Pala Sutta as follows. I'll just read the English translation. Having ascended the terrace of the stupa, if the stupa is large, one should circumambulate it 3 times and pay homage at 4 places. If it is larger, 4 places, like north, west, east, south, on these 4 places. Like, it can be other directions as well, but normally it's paid respect for, because it's a bit larger stupa, so it would take time for you to want to circumambulate it. So, for example, if stupa is like Mahachetya, he would pay homage in 4 different places, while going around it 3 times, for 3 times. If it is small, one should similarly circumambulate it and 3 times and pay homage at 8 places. Since it's a small stupa, you can pay homage at 8 places. However, having venerated the stupa, upon reaching the Bodhi tree terrace, one should venerate the Bodhi tree with reverence, showing respectful demeanor and as though in the presence of the Blessed One himself. There is no mention here that verses must be recited. What is stated is that one should circumambulate, stop at appropriate places and pay homage, placing 5 points of the body at ground. Pancha patittitena vanditabbo. The 5 places are that you keep your arm, 2 arms, 2 knees, 4, and then the head. Right? So 5. Then this same idea is stated in other commentaries as well. Numerous accounts describing the benefits obtained from acts of homage and offering are found in texts such as Apadana Pali and Vimanavattu Pali. In those stories, there is no mention that homage or offerings were made by reciting verses. In a few Apadana stories, it is stated that verses were recited in praise of the Buddha. Those verses were recited as acts of praising the Buddha. Yeah. So they were recited as Tuti Puja, we normally say, right? Some has praised the Buddha at his front. Like in those days, like kings were praised in that way by the Vandibhattas, and we call them prashasti, that the verses of praise, and some had done it to the Buddha as well, and surely he deserves that. In one sense, when we are paying homage, the recitation of verses is also kind of praising him. One should consider how much confusion would have arisen if during the lifetime of the Buddha, people who came into his presence had begun to pay homage by reciting verses. Those who came before the Buddha paid homage without reciting verses. Flowers and other offerings were also offered without reciting verses. Likewise, even today, there is no fault in paying homage and offering flowers, lamps, and the like without reciting verses. Because surely, in one place he says, if people started to recite verses and do as we say, like hours, minutes of recitation before offering him, and surely Buddha would chase them away, because because it would surely disturb his seclusion. And even if someone starts doing that to us as a monk, we would like, yeah, okay, 1 or 2 times paying it, okay, but if it takes so long, we would say no, enough, because I have my own work. So the purpose is like when the receiver is alive, yes, we are not going to consume all of his time, and since he is not there, yes, we may do the recitation. But so therefore it's very clear, while he was alive, people didn't recite verses much while paying respect to him. When one goes to a monastery, to the stupa, terrace or bodhi tree terrace, and pays homage in silence, having placed 5 points of the body on the ground, the wholesome deed of homage, vandanamaya kusala, is obtained. When flowers, lamps and similar items are placed on the offering seat with the intention of offering the Buddha to the Buddha, the wholesome deed of offering pujame, dhaname, kusala is obtained. When you pay respect, is a vandana kusala. When you offer things, is a dhaname kusala. When you offer flowers, water, food, whatever, that's the dana. The absence of verse recitation does not prevent the wholesome act of homage and offering from taking place. Some people mistakenly believe that verses are absolutely necessary to pay homage and do offerings, and refrain from going to temples to perform. And they feel like, okay, it's utterly necessary, so they refrain from going to temples to perform homage and offerings altogether, since they do not know verses. Okay, maybe, I don't know whether that happens these days, but in those days, maybe during Mahathira's time, some people didn't go to temples because they like to make homage, but they felt like without verses, it's not possible to pay homage. Okay, such a pity thing. Anyway, this is a wrong understanding. Those who do not know verses should perform homage and offerings without reciting verses. Some people, because they themselves do not know verses, become distressed and search for others to recite verses whenever they wish to perform homage and offerings. Okay, so maybe that had been a culture. I know even some politicians, I know, when they go to temples, like not with all the media, but they ask some people like the guards to give, like, recite Panchasila, so he would repeat after him. So it seems like this custom had been existing in 90s, the 70s, 60s, 50s, and in the past, that one should, now obviously he's telling one of his guards to recite Panatipata, Veramani and so forth, and he would repeat it. It's not like he's taking Sila from him. That the custom is that you have to repeat when someone says. In the same way, some might have that idea, yes, you have to have someone to recite the verses when you are making the offering. Yes, so maybe that's what has happened in those days, and I know personally some people who still do that in the older generation. So maybe that was some kind of a culture existing in those days. That's why Mahathera was referring to this idea, because this was written in 1950s. So maybe such customs existed. I don't see any such customs prevailing at the moment, that even though you don't recite, you are taking someone to make it, because now these days people have books and so forth. Anyway, some people, because they themselves do not verses, become distressed and search for others to recite verses whenever they wish to perform homage and offerings. Just as one seeks a ritual officiant to make offerings to deities, it is necessary to search for someone to recite verses in order to perform Buddha Puja. Yes, when you are making offering to the deities, devas, yes, you need a person, Kapu Mahatya, to do that, because he is the one who knows the proper wordings and the rituals to be done. So normally when you are making offering to the deities, we normally need the support of such a person, unless you are just sharing the merit. But if you are actually making a real offering, like fruits or whatever, lambs, and also fulfilling a certain promise that one has made, yes, normally such a person in there, because he is the one who knows the customs of doing these all these rituals to the deities. But what Mahathera is saying, you don't need such a person to perform Buddha's acts, because you just go and just offer and pay homage. That would complete your meritorious deed. It's not necessary that you need to recite verses. So that's why he said, just as one seeks a ritual officiant, kapua, to make offerings to deities, it is necessary to search for someone to recite verses. It is unnecessary to search for someone to recite verses in order to perform Buddha Puja. If there happens to be someone who can recite verses, there is no fault in making them to recite while one makes the offering. That's good. The custom of reciting verses is of relatively recent origin. Reciting verses without understanding their meaning cannot be said to be an act of great benefit. It is an act of benefit, but not out of great benefit if you don't know the meanings. If verses are recited with understanding, wholesome merit arises with each word. Yes, that's the next point. It's better you recite. Those who recite verses should also try to understand their meaning. Yes. Then it should be said that when performing homage to an offerings using one's own language to express the quality of the triple gem is even better. Yes, that we have to admit. Now, sometimes we use the Pali terms, Pali verses. If you are well versed in Pali, yes, by reciting that, and you can get a lot of happiness with it, a lot of wisdom, and you feel like, and there's a very nice rhythm in Pali, and there's sort of a spiritual stimulation going on. Since we are Buddhists, I feel maybe, and also maybe the language is quite special when we recite in Pali. But if you don't know Pali, yes, it's better. It's always encouraged to do it in Sinhalese, in the whatever language you are accustomed to. So because you know the meaning. But what matters here is in the end, what the language doesn't matter. Whatever what level of wisdom arose in you, it was what matters. So therefore, it's very necessary that these verses are recited in Sinhalese if the person is not very good in Pali. So if some people, I know some traditions have made certain verses, they have translated these verses into Sinhalese. Some people started criticizing this. I don't know what the main reason for that. Yes, it's always nice that if you use your own language and to recite, because then you are more closer to the meaning and you are getting a greater merit out of it. There's no doubt about that. There's no argument. Now, for example, when we are meditating, when you are contemplating the meditation, Buddhanusati, we normally do it unless you are reciting the Itipiso verse. If you are supposed to do it in detail, we normally do it in Sinhalese, in our own language. When we do the Vipassana contemplation, we do it in Sinhalese because that's the language that our mind, the language which is ingrained in our mind stream. Because we think in our own language, our mother tongue. Unless someone has lived for a long period in another country, then that language would be his, he would be more familiar with that. If someone has lived in a foreign country, maybe English is more familiar to him, so he might use the English language in reciting. So likewise, the language doesn't matter here. But reciting Pali, yes, it gives you some kind of a very nice vibe there. And especially when you are reciting Paritta, yes, it should be done in Pali. It's highly recommended to do in Pali because the rhythm and everything has some kind of an effect. But if you are making a homage or paying respect to the Buddha, you are not going to get any protection from your recitation. What you are planning is to get more merit. So therefore, if you are not familiar, if you cannot get the real meaning in Pali, is encouraged to do it in Sinhalese. That's why Mahathera even has said to monks, when you are doing the Paccavekkhana, which we call the contemplation or reflection on the four requisites, if you are not very accustomed in Pali, do it in Sinhalese. For example, myself, when I do my reflections, I normally do it in Sinhalese because it gives more meaning to what I am reflecting. But sometimes at the end of chantings, we do it in Pali because even the Pali words, we get the full meaning. There's no issue in it. So if someone has both the skills, he may use alternatively. But the thing is, if someone is not really familiar or accustomed to Pali language, it's always recommended do the recitation in Sinhalese or whatever language you are accustomed to. But doing the parittas, yes, then you have to use the original text because it's about protection. It's about something extra than the merits. There's something mysterious in it. So you have to use the words exactly as it was preserved. That's very necessary. So that's why I say it should be said that when performing homage and offerings using one's own language to express the qualities of the triple gem is even better. One should understand that the more one recollects and recites the qualities of the triple gem during the acts of homage and offering, the greater the merit that is gained. So therefore, if you can recite, yes, that would be much better. So it's not necessary, but so if you don't know the verses and if you don't have the time to the verses, still you can offer and pay homage and get the merits. Yes, so that would be the session, and I think we have done now 15 questions. There are another 85 left. There's quite a number, but we'll slowly we'll try to get the book done. So I hope you enjoyed the session, and it's up for the forum to ask questions if there are any.
There are a few questions that are not related to this sermon, but may I ask that Bhante?
Yeah, if there's no hand raise.
Still no.
Go ahead.
The question is some answer. Could you please let us know how we as lay people should begin and follow the path of Dhamma, especially for those who may not believe in the concept of the kinds of dangers of the apaya. So how
that last part I missed, like the ones who don't have. What do you? Can you repeat the question again? Yeah.
Yes. This, as lay people should begin and follow the path of Dhamma, especially those who may not fully believe in the concept of the kinds of danger, sagarapaya.
Oh.
Though they are there, some they don't believe sagarapaya.
Yeah, then it's like this now. It gets a little bit complicated. The question is whether you believe in rebirth or not. That's a pretty tough, like very necessary one. If you are not believing in rebirth, then there's no use in Buddhism in the deeper sense, right? Because Buddhism is to get rid of the rebirth. So if there's no rebirth, and if someone someone doesn't believe in rebirth, he's not going to get much benefit out of Buddhism, unless that one lives a proper life following the Buddha's teachings. And it can be done not only by Buddha's teaching. There are many teachings, and there are a lot of ethics in the world, and the customs are there, the civilization is there. Yeah, we can just follow the stream, and we can still be good human beings without following Buddha's teachings. So the core essence of following the Buddha's teaching is to get rid of samsara. So if someone is going to get rid of samsara, he has to have a belief in rebirth. It's a very vital thing. So if now, yes, someone believes in rebirth but not in four apayas, so what does that mean? One can neglect the niraya, which is not visible to us at the moment. We can neglect the peta and asuras, which are non-humans, but we cannot neglect animals, right? So because we know animals are there. Now if someone, what does it mean by neglecting four apaya? So we have to analyze that question again, because does he or she doesn't believe that one can be an animal, or that possibility is there? Then you have to say no, or not. Other apayas I would neglect. It's possible to be an animal. So according to that, then you have to get rid of the devas as well. So then what happens? You have only two realms: animals and humans. So it's a very strange scenario. But anyway, so one can be born as an animal, which would be the downfall, and one can be born as a human, which would be the good state. And the samsara is going between animal and human, and we would end it one day. And what happens when the world ends? Where it goes? Now, where are we going to live? And okay, animals are no more, humans are no more. So is there no rebirth? Now, according to Buddhism, you have to be in a state which is not affected by this destruction of the world. Yes. So then, when the world originates again, yes, you come down and born as humans, and if you keep on digging into this question and just say, okay, I'm a Buddhist and I don't believe in the four apayas, so I don't see it has much validity there. At least, even if someone is a Buddhist, even he doesn't believe in the four apayas or say mysterious worlds, he has to believe in at least three places. That the human, because you are a human, Animals, okay, there are animals obviously, and there has to be another state where we are born into while the world is destroyed. Or we have to believe that we are born as humans in another far away distant world, or as an animal, which is a very, very strange scenario to believe in, because we normally believe the world destroys and world originates again. We are born again in that place. We are not in a state of absence, right? So if the world is destroyed, you have to be in a like sort of a non-human, non-animal state. So whether it's up or down doesn't matter. So these three, at least a Buddhist has to believe. Then if he doesn't believe in these, even in these three, if you one believes in animal, one believes in human, and not in the other state, then the question comes, what would happen to us when the world is destroyed? Are we attaining nirvana? Is the end of the rebirth? So that would be the liberation according to Buddhism. So what we are supposed to do is, we don't need to do anything, just wait for the destruction of the world and we'd be free from the suffering. So then the next question comes, okay, if someone is, we don't need to think about such deep concepts, still can we get the benefit out of Buddhism? Okay, that's a different topic actually. That's a different topic. So then the next question comes, no, someone doesn't believe in Buddhism, believe in the rebirth and still be a Buddhist, then he is not a Buddhist actually. Very sorry to say that. If someone doesn't believe in Buddhism, then you are not a Buddhist. If you believe in rebirth, then you are not a Buddhist, because then you are not following like that, because it's a wrong view of view of annihilation. So a person who is having the view of annihilation cannot be a Buddha's follower. He may respect the Buddha, he may consider, because the Buddha has clearly said there is a rebirth, and the purpose of his teaching is to get rid of the rebirth. So he has a completely different view, and we are holding to a different view, and the respect that you are having to a Buddha is like the respect a Buddhist have towards Jesus, or the respect one has towards a political leader, the respect one has towards a scientist, the respect one has towards his parents. We are not going under refuge. We are just, okay, the Confucius has said certain good things. Jesus had said certain good things. We are not neglecting it. We just, if he said love the neighbors, and when someone was asked to hit the first stone, he said, okay, hit anyone who has not done any sin in the world. Okay, these are very nice ways of insights that he gave to the people, and show that you are also mortal, and we are also prone to fall. So always try to forgive the person who has done a fall, because we ourselves also have falls in ourselves. So these are very nice quotation, very nice approach that he had made. So we have to respect. We respect such things. We would not fully agree with the statement of creation, even though Jesus or whoever has said it. Personally, we would not, as Buddhists, we would not agree with that. But still, we would respect him as well. So it's not going under refuge of Jesus, right? It's just respecting certain of his actions, some of his actions, some of his behaviors, some of his wording, some of his teachings. We do respect it. Now, Albert Einstein had found something, and we are benefiting out of it. We respect him. Some political leader has saved the country, or saved us from something, some disaster, then we would still respect that person. That doesn't mean we are going under refuge him, and we are going refuge under him. That doesn't mean we are going under refuge on the Jesus. Or if someone is not believing in rebirth and he will still respect the Buddha, it's just a respect. It's not under going refuge under him. He is not a Buddhist actually. You have to say that. We are very clear on that. If someone doesn't believe in rebirth, he's not a Buddhist. So it's not, the question is invalid in that sense. If someone asks, how about a Buddhist who doesn't believe in rebirth, practice Buddhism? No, he is not a Buddhist. A person who doesn't believe in Buddhism, can he get benefit out of Buddhism? That's a question you have to ask. Then a person who doesn't believe in four apayas and other realms, still also aligning into Buddhist, aligning into the Miccha Ditthi, because it says that one of the Samadhittis is there are certain Upapatika beings. It's one of the main factors of Samadhitti in our teachings. So because when you think as a Buddhist, as I said, there has at least, now if you just forget about all the information and the numbers given in the books about the 6 worlds, 15, 16 Brahma realms, 6 divine worlds, 4 apayas, 128 or 100 whatever 60 or whatever numbers of hells, if you're still denying it, but still you have to accept one existence other than human and animal when the world destroys. Unless a very hypothetical, like very strange phenomenon of birth in another human realm. If someone believes only humans and animals exist in the world, then like you have to have that third realm as well, at least that third realm. So if you deny that, what happens is the annihilation of the samsara happens with the destruction of the world, and that would also make you rather than saying directly, I would say the person is inclined towards to become a non-Buddhist. Becoming inclined towards. If no rebirth is believed, surely he's not a Buddhist. No argument in that. Someone says, I don't believe in 4 apayas, I don't believe in divine realms. Obviously, you have to believe in the human realm, and if you have to believe in the animal realm. If someone doesn't believe, okay, I cannot be a human, can I be an animal after my next birth? Even Pythagoras believed it in Greek. And can a human be an animal in the next life? Can an animal be a human in the next life? Even that is disregarded, then he or she is not a Buddhist. Forget about that. Right? So when someone says disregarding the 4 apayas, still you have to consider, can he be an animal in the next life? Can an animal be a human in the next life? Can a human be another human in the next life? Can an animal be another animal in the next life? At least that has to be accepted. If someone says, no, I'm not worried about that, then you're out of the context of Buddhist teachings. Right? So that's the first thing to answer. Then comes, okay, now there is no belief in rebirth, no belief in afterlife, no belief in hells, heavens, or transmigration from life to life, inter-realm migration, animal to human, human to animal, and all these. Forget about the other realms. Still, you have to have that special realm when the world is destroyed. Okay, anyway. So, if someone is not believing any of them, then he's not a Buddhist. Now, can a non-Buddhist of that caliber benefit out of Buddhism? Yes, can. Possible. So, that's why Apannaka Sutta was uttered. Apannaka Sutta was uttered for someone who is in doubt about the rebirth, who is not very clear about it. We normally say atheists are there who doesn't believe in God. Then we have agnostics, or someone who is not sure whether there's a God or not. And then the believers. So in Buddhism we would say, yes, one who believes in rebirth and one who believes in the samsara and the path to the liberation is a Buddhist. And some who is holding a completely wrong view is a non-Buddhist, yes. And one who is not certain. Okay, I'm not very certain. I'm not holding a strong view that there's such a thing. I'm not denying what the Buddha's teaching is. Still, he would fall into the non-Buddhist sect, but he's still in a gray area. Okay. So, Apannaka Sutta was preached to such people. If someone is not very clear whether the rebirth is there or not, Buddha said, still, behave well. Why is that? Because behaving well, abstaining from evil deeds in this life would surely benefit for the betterment of the person in this very life. So if there is an afterlife, there is an afterlife, the highest possibility would be, if something gives good results in this life, if there is an afterlife, it would also give good results in the next life. If there is no life, okay, that's the end of the story. No worries, no problem. But if there is a life, the probability is that it would give higher probability. If something benefited better in this life, that would also benefit better in the next life. Then, if someone does akusalas, yes, he would suffer in this life. Suffer means like it's obviously stealing, killing, and all this sexual misconduct. You can have some sort of pleasure, temporal pleasure, but the mind would not be at peace for sure, and we know that because it's always he's in trouble, he's in mental turmoil. So it's not I know the people will not start praising, liking, and also we have the guilt in ourselves because we are harming other beings, and so it would not result in a positive way in this very life. So if there is a rebirth, the high probability is for it to give bad results. If there's no rebirth, okay, there's no issue. So living a bad life and living a good life, according to what the teachers have said, not only Buddha, there are many other teachers who have said good and bad things, and follow the good, follow the bad. If there's no rebirth, doesn't matter, whatever cause it is, that's the end of the story. So if there is a rebirth, if good gives better results in this life, and it's very high probable that it would give, probably it would give good results in the next life. If bad gives bad results in this life, just temporal happiness, next life, and probably would also give bad results. So and then the question is, now if there's no rebirth, okay, what would be? Now you have to live. What about this life? Yes, live it properly, live it nicely. So always do the good. So therefore, if you're doing the good in this life, even there is no rebirth, if you're doing the good in this life, that is also supported. So Buddha said, if there is no rebirth, now you follow good, there is no rebirth, okay, afterlife there is no problem, but in this life it's positive to you. If there is a life, still the possibility is, if there is a rebirth, but most probably it will benefit better. You are living a bad life, all the breaking the precepts and not doing the duties, not respectful to others, living a bad life. No life, yes, there's no afterlife, there's no problem. Things have ended. But within this life, he's not living a very peaceful life. So it's not something worthy, praiseworthy. And if there is a next rebirth, probability is suffering. He's not saying most probably it would end up in suffering. So therefore, that's why it is said in Sinhalese, atat natat sudanani paraloa, something like that. So whether the next life exists or not, try to live a proper life, because it is indeed giving good results in this value. And next thing is, if you are following the conduct of 5 precepts at least, for example, 5 precepts. In this case, you don't need to pay respect to the Buddha, you don't need to pay respect to the Dhamma, because he's not believing in anything. He may do it as a gesture of respect. But living a proper life is always better, because you will have the peace of mind, you will have the clarity of mind, you will have good relationship with the family, with the society, and also can be successful in all the departments. So in that case, living a good virtuous life, following the 5 precepts is very vital. And then doing some meditation will also help, like breathing exercises and so forth, spreading loving kindness and so forth, right? Because if someone is not very strictly into wrong views, yes, anyone can progress, but if you want to progress like higher levels of jhanas and so forth, you have to have some aditi in it. But anyway, so you can process and you can have clarity in your mind when you meditate, when you spread loving kindness, having very nice pleasant thoughts towards others. Yes, these are very beneficial for the studies, for the occupation, for the job, for your family life, and being truthful. So those falls into the category of ethics. So you have to always conduct, or you have to divide the departments of your physical and verbal conduct and your mental conduct. Mental conduct is having loving kindness thoughts towards others, always wishing for the best of others, blessing others. These are mental cultivation. For example, focusing on the breath is like developing your concentration power. It's very good for your health, mental health, and also for your physical health as well. Then verbally and physically being watchful about what we do. Is this going to harm someone else? Is it going to do I like if this was done to myself? And am I fulfilling my duties to the family? Am I fulfilling my duties to the country? Am I fulfilling my duties to the society for my job? And am I living a righteous life? He's not worried about the karma vipaka, because he's not certain about that. But at least we should know, we should have that proper mindset, because happiness, now one can be happy by harming others, but that happiness cannot last long, because wholesomeness and unwholesomeness of mind is not something unique to a religion. When we have anger, whether he's a Buddhist or a Christian or whoever, whatever non-religious person or whatever person in another religion, still suffering is there. Anger hurts. The person who gets angry and the ones who receive the anger. Lust would cause craving would lead to sadness and also fear. These are universal laws. These are universal laws. So always it's better to have less greedy, less craving, and to have no anger. All right, and to have no anger, or at least less anger, to control your temper. So these are very, very vital things. So therefore, and the killing, stealing, and all these bad conducts and shouting, hurting others, hurting their feelings, all these are done with lobha, dosa, and also the ignorance, not thinking, not knowing the situation, or not knowing the consequences of what we do. So always lobha, dosa, moha are the ones, are the hetus for these misbehaviors, bad thoughts. So we have to suppress them and put them down, and that would give the mental peace. Because if someone is having no anger, obviously, regardless of the religion, he would be happy. If he is having less attachment, he is less prone to suffering. And if he has more intelligence or understanding about the situation, he is very probably not to make mistakes and blunders in his life. So therefore, regardless, if someone is not believing in rebirth, is not in the category, I have to clearly say this, there cannot be a Buddhist who cannot believe in rebirth. No, there's no way at all. Right? If someone is not believing in rebirth, just don't consider you as a Buddhist. No, not at all. If someone is not believing in the 4 realms of apayas, that's why I said, okay, that's a very sort of a statement, but then the question should be asked, animal realm, human realm, can there be not of a transmigration of a self, but births, inter-realm births, and what happens at the end of the world? Is it going to end? So if someone says when the world ends, everything ends, then you are out of Buddhism for sure, because you are talking about liberation which would happen naturally. Because when the world ends, there is no place to live, so everyone goes to extinction. Then that's the nirvana. Nirvana means that no rebirth. No, it would happen when there is no place for someone to be born. So then that's Buddhism. Buddha says no, you have to remove the defilements and prevent the karma from giving the rebirth, then only the liberation would happen. So as long as the karma is there and the defilements are there, one has to be born in somewhere. There's no way. So if animal and human realms are destroyed with the destruction of the world, there has to be another state, there has to be another form of life where we'll be living. And just forget about human, no animal existence in the far away universe, or far away galaxy or whatever. So now, therefore, it's a very statement. So if someone is not believing in 4 apayas, you have to dig in and ask what type of non-belief is there. He is bordering the non-Buddhist sect, and maybe he is a non-Buddhist. But if someone doesn't believe in Buddhism, he's not a Buddhist, then the question has to be asked, can a non-Buddhist benefit out of Buddhism? That's the question that you have to ask them. Can a non-Buddhist benefit? Yes, non-Buddhist can benefit out of Buddhism for this life. And also, if there is a next life, and then according to Buddhist philosophy, if someone has lived properly, he's going to benefit as well in the next life as well. So that would be my answer.
And also connected to that, some people may all will the material comforts, but yet they experience suffering. And how does this relate to samsara, and how can we overcome such suffering?
I couldn't follow the question. Sorry for that. You're repeating.
You want to
Repeat. Yes. I couldn't follow it.
Some people may all the wealth and material comforts, and yet this suffer. And what is the reason for this? And how can one find true happiness beyond worldly possessions?
I think there's a viral post made by the wealthiest man in the world, right? A few days ago, or maybe yesterday or today. He said, the ones who said money cannot buy happiness really knew what happiness is, something like that. It was posted by Elon Musk, because he reached 800 billion USD recently, his hot net wealth, and he himself has said, yes, it seems like he's not fully happy. That's how we would interpret that exposed. The ones who said that the money cannot buy happiness really meant it, or really they knew it, or something like that. Yes, that's ultimately, I would say that's perfectly true. But that doesn't mean that money is not contributing to the happiness. Money is a very vital factor for happiness, because whatever we say, if someone is struggling with his job, someone is struggling with the food, someone is struggling with the shelter, you cannot be happy, obviously, you cannot be happy, right? Unless he has trained his mind in a spiritual way, yes. That's what happens to monks. Even monks, we do, if we don't have proper shelter, if we don't have proper food, we would even suffer, and it is quite difficult for us to, it would be a challenging task for us to bring our mind into that happy level, but we are ready for that, because we abandon our wealth, we abandon our families, relatives, and all the social connections in order to face that, with the expectation that I would be living such a minimalistic life. So all the samanas, not only Buddhist monks, all the samanas, rishis, Hindu sadhus, they come to this life, holy life, with such expectations. So we are ready for that, because it's something that now, for instance, if we were asked to do some physical training like a soccer player, we'll never be able to do that, because it's a really hard process. Like, you have to have so much physical fitness in order to perform in the professional level. But now, if we were asked to do that forcefully, we would really dislike it, because it's not something that meant for us. We are not ready for that. Our body is not meant ready for that. But now think about the professional soccer players. Doing fitness is not something happiness. It's really suffering for the body. But they do it because they willingly accept that. If a university student is asked to do the same training, that would be ragging. That would amount to ragging. Now Lionel Messi may be running, I don't know how many laps per a day or a week, I don't know. If a university student who had gone to study is asked to do the same thing, you cannot say Messi is doing that, so he's also doing that. No, because it was forcefully. He was asked to do it forcefully. He wouldn't want to do that, and that's called ragging. In the football player's case, no, it's something he embraces. He does it willingly. So therefore, a life without money, if embraced with intention or deliberately, volitionally, if we intentionally embrace that, then we are okay without money. But for a person who is bound with money and who has the expectations of money, not having it is obviously suffering. Now I'll focus on the lay life. I'm not focusing on the monk's life. Yes, lay life is bound with money, and people are expected to earn money. Therefore, money plays a huge role in deciding one's happiness. That we have to understand. Yeah, poor people, can't they be happy? Yes, for that you have to have a mental preparation or construction for that. Some sort of spiritual input, or maybe your own positive way of thinking is necessary. Even without all the hardship, still he can be happy. I heard this. I haven't done the research yet. I've heard that in Bhutan they say gross national happiness. They try to measure it, and it is said, the ones who have visited said, in overall general sense, they are happy people. That doesn't mean that they don't have conflicts or they don't have family issues. That doesn't mean that they are never having anger or anything. But in the overall sense, as a country, there's less robbery, less murder, and there's a very happy society, they said, even though their wealth is not that much. So this kind of spiritual input and the way of mindset, if you have it, yes, even without money, one can be happy. But then in Bhutan's case, the whole country is supporting this concept. But while we are in a different Western country which is very competitive, And even in Sri Lanka, the society is now getting into the competitiveness. No, at that time, money plays a huge role, and even we like it or not, having money is a vital thing. So, and also if someone is in a happy like marriage life, now for example, if someone has a family, children, and if he loses his job, come on, now you cannot be happy. You cannot come to home laughing and say, oh, I lost my job. You cannot do that. And that would be really disrespectful to the family as well. Because then the obvious question is, now how are we going to live? How are you going to earn your money, have the money? So even that, like, so we should not be taking it as it is a loss. So even though we are not, even someone is not hurt, he has a responsibility to find it out now. Now, for example, if I go Pindapata and if I don't get any food, then I cannot come and say, oh, I didn't get any food. No, I didn't get any food, so I have to find out, at least I have to settle my mind and accept it and stay hunger for that day. But next day I have to find out a way, and if it keeps on happening, I have to change my monastery and go to another monastery where food can be obtained. So therefore, poverty, no job, like loss of job, unoccupation, breakups, family issues, these are all detrimental to the happiness. So money plays a big role. So we cannot completely deny the support given by money to happiness. The point is, happiness is not entirely depending on the money. That's the point here. But happiness depends greatly on money in a competitive society. For example, one has no money at all, but then he has to depend on someone, right? So that cannot be happiness, right? Unless he's a monk. The lay life, you are still keep on depending on someone. You can't be naturally happy because you know that you are depending on someone. So that independent freedom of the mind is not there. So happiness is not about just laughing and smiling all the time. No. It's like it's an overall thing. The happiness is measured in an overall way. So are we happy in a healthier life? Like, so there are various ways to measure happiness. Intellectually happiness, spiritual happiness, happiness like how much possession and how possession that whether we can afford our own lives and so forth. There are various ways to decide on that. So money plays a big role. We cannot take it out in the lay life and say, no, without money we can be happy. No, that's impossible. So unless one has some kind of spiritually developed, grown mind or something, but still he has to go through some struggles, right? He has to go through some struggles. So then what happens? Money alone is not happiness. That's true. Even though we have the abundant amount of money, all the other needs are fulfilled, still one can be unhappy. That's why I say money cannot buy happiness. Yes, even though you have all the money in the world, you cannot buy happiness completely out of it, right? It can create a basis to get rid of most of the suffering that one would experience otherwise. But after you have fulfilled all these, still mental happiness depends on something else. So for that the positive thinking is necessary. The way we think is more important. The way we think is very important. In my opinion, the happiness greatly depends on the vision that we have about life and about the world. Because certain emotions would make us to lose happiness, anxiety, fear, regret. There are various emotions that are detrimental or harming the happiness. So all this can be overcome with the vision that we have about the life, about the samsara, about the society, about the world. Yes. Now, for example, if someone has, that's what happens to bodhisattvas mostly, because his vision about the samsara, about the life, about the world is so vast. In most of his lives, he has seen the past, in many lives as ascetics, he has seen the past lives, he has seen how the world works. So these are ingrained in his mind, and he has the capacity to think correctly. So he knows the nature of life. Suddenly something happens, he gets sick, he loses his arm, Even that's why he could donate his eyes, because he knows there's just another 30, 40, 50 years left. Compared to samsara, there's nothing. So the entire thing becomes something like very small, even a life is not something very important, like very seriously important to him. That's why he could just completely discard his lives for the sake of others in order to fulfill paramis. So vision makes someone happier, in my opinion. Buddhism gives you that vision, samadhi. It gives you how to deal with death, how to deal with sickness, how to deal with issues, how to deal with emotions. So the vision is very important. But even though someone has good vision because of the Dhamma knowledge, there are certain things that we have to tackle in practicality. Okay, I know anger is harmful, but it still keeps on coming, and I express myself, and I feel okay, I feel distressed after that, I feel regret, I regret after that. Then I should know how to balance my emotions, how to balance my craving, desires. Yes, emotional intelligence is very important. So first we need to have a proper vision about the life. That would basically rule out most of the wrong thinking. And then how to balance with the emotions. And then meditation, for instance, is a mental cultivation that gives you more peace and completely keeps your mind well concentrated, because the happiness is lost when our mind goes into unnecessary objects and linger in those unnecessary objects. If someone has the concentration to completely take his mind out of these objects and focus on one object, that's a very strong strength one has. Because mental suffering in the end, because physical suffering is a different case. Now what I hope now we boil down this question to mental suffering. Mental suffering is obtained or encountered basically thinking unnecessarily, lingering in unnecessary objects. So what mental concentration gives us? It gives us the power to take our minds away from unnecessary objects and focus on a very neutral object. And when you keep on staying on that, the suffering mind will be free from suffering. That is called a vimutta chitta. It is free from unnecessary thoughts. Eventually, when the mind is free from unnecessary thoughts, the happiness, it starts to soak in happiness. So therefore, this kind of vision is very vital. Vision is very vital, in my opinion. It doesn't need to be a Buddhist vision, but at least what is good and bad and what the life is and how to deal with these. Even some Westerners, they have very strong visions in dealing with the life's problems, and then how to deal with the emotions, disruptive emotions, I would say. The emotional intelligence is very vital in that case. And then some kind of mental cultivation, meditation is necessary. So all this should be done in the surface of a proper conduct sila. So when we have this, obviously the mind would become happy. So money is necessary to get rid of certain basic types of suffering. But even though someone has the money, if he's been disturbed by unnecessary thoughts, emotions, anger, defilements, he may not have that mental peace. So it can be gained by that mental cultivation. So for a monk, even without the money, even that mental cultivation is enough, because he has willingly adopted the life of no wealth. But for lay people, no. Their life will build upon money. So there has to be some amount of money, because in the end, happiness comes from that mental cultivation, whether he's a monk or whether he's a layperson, right? But for the layperson, there is some other additional stuff as well. So he needs money, basically. Then the mental cultivation. For a monk, he has to find out the requisites in a minimalistic way, because he's ready for that mentally. That's why I gave the example of a football player and someone who is asked to do that. So it's like a football player. Monk has adopted himself and he has no much expectations. He don't worry about his color, skin color or appearance. They're nothing much concern for them. So then just the mental cultivation. So I think that's how I would see this happiness in relation to money. And I would not just say money is not necessary. No, for lay people, money is utterly necessary. But money alone is not going to give you the happiness. That's the point here.
It's all for today. You can end the session right now.
Okay. So then, so today's sermon is devotedly sponsored by Mr. Miran Tarindu Munasinghe, residing in Malaysia. The primary purpose of this meritorious offering is to seek success in business endeavors and to share merits with his parents and all family members. May all divine beings who rejoice in merit partake in this offering. May this merit be dedicated to the Venerable Dhamma preacher and all esteemed monks who uphold and spread the Dhamma. So we wish Miran Tarindu Munasinghe, who has been sponsoring this program for some time, and may all his businesses, endeavors, whatever wholesome wishes that he has, may all they become successful. May his family members and everyone related to him live happily, and may he also be able to gain more deeper Dhamma knowledge and finally attain the mundane and worldly and also supramundane happiness as he wishes. And also may all the divine beings, deceased ones, dead relatives of all the ones who have participated, may they enjoy on this, and all the divine beings who are protecting the sasana, protecting the world, and also this residing in this institution, may all of them rejoice on this great merit, and may their divine pleasures enhanced by this merit, and finally may they get liberated. And also deceased ones of everyone who has participated in this event, may they be happy, they be free from suffering, and finally attain the liberation. Special merits are also dedicated to Mr. Vajira Ranasinghe, residing in Switzerland, for providing the Zoom app for this Dhamma sermon. Yes, his Zoom app has been used for some time in propagating Dhamma, and it's a great merit that he is doing. So he is sponsoring it. So may Vajira Ranasinghe be able to gain more deeper knowledge in Dhamma and finally attain the liberation as soon as possible. May these merits also be transferred to his beloved father, Mr. Ranasinghe, who has passed away. So may he rejoice on his son's merit and may it be free from suffering. May this merit be shared with everyone who has gathered today to listen to the Dhamma sermon. And also special merits to given to Mrs. Udyan Unantana and Vishwa Unantana for organizing and conducting these special Dhamma talks. May all their sublime wishes be soon come true. And Mr. Nikesh and Prasad, who has been broadcasting and telecasting or whatever these sermons, recording, and so may all their wishes be soon fulfilled. And finally, may all of us be able to be happy in this life, afterlife, and also finally attain the final liberation as soon as possible. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Akasattaha ca bhummatta. Devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha sasanang. Akasattaha ca bhummatta. Devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Akasattaha ca bhummatta. Devanaga mahiddika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sambuddha savakan chirang rakkantu tvang sada. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satam samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Idam me punya kamma asavakkaya vahang hotu sabba dukkha pamunchatu.